Hi, good afternoon. Just wanted to quickly introduce what we're doing today. In the meantime, as we get more participants on the call here, the Arts Culture Resources India, along with its chapter host TIFA Working Studios and the knowledge partner British Council, are presenting today's session, which is Building Digital Strategies. ACRI is a space for knowledge exchange, information sharing, networking, and learning for cultural and creative industry professionals in India. We now have chapters in Mumbai, Bangalore, and Pune. Due to the current situation of COVID and the lockdown all across the country, we have quite fairly early on responded to this idea of how will cultural organizations, both small, large, medium, independent, supported by the government, deal with the current change, and how will we respond in these challenging times. And this session is imagined in a way where the different speakers that we have today will share ways in which they are doing it and ways in which they're dealing with these new changes, and also provide challenges of how they've been navigating this space. So we hope that there is much to learn from this and more learnings that we can share as time goes forward. I'd just quickly like to lay out some hygiene rules of how we would be conducting the session. So it's quite straightforward and streamlined as we go forward. The chat box, which is on the bottom of your screen, will have the introductions of each speaker as they come on. Verbally, I will introduce them as well, but only briefly in the beginning of the session. So please refer to the chat box if you do want an introduction of each of the speakers. The Q&A box, on the other hand, which is also on the bottom of the screen, is where you can post questions regarding the session. If you have a question specifically for a certain speaker, please do mention their name so we know that speaker will be answering them. Some questions will be answered verbally in the Zoom webinar, and some questions will be taken later on in a text format, typed out and sent into the Q&A. So those are the two ways in which you can interact. Each session is about 10 minutes where the speaker will present their work. And following that, we'll keep 5 minutes for Q&A after each speaker. If you do have questions later on for that speaker, please do feel free to share it in the chat with their name, and we will try and answer them through the duration of the webinar. I'll begin with the introductions of the speakers right now. The flow of the event is, first we'll have Priyanka Raja present, then is Roshan Abbas, then we have Nivedita Poddar, and lastly we have Archana who will be coming in. So I'm just going to quickly run through all of the speakers' bios, and they will be again posted in the chat box as they come on for the presentation. Priyanka Raja is the co-founder at Experimenter. Along with her partner Pratik, in 2017, they founded the gallery in Kolkata. Experimenter represents and manages careers of some of the most critically celebrated artists from South Asia and the rest of the world, highlighting an experimental program of exhibitions and embodies the front line of contemporary practice in art. Since 2010, Experimenter hosts its much acclaimed annual curatorial intensive, the Experimenter Curators Hub, bringing together the most respected curators in visual arts over the years. Experimenter in 2017 also launched Experimenter Books and later went on to introduce the Experimenter Learning Program, the Experimenter Outpost in 2019, and recently they have launched Experimenter Labs, which is an inclusive experimental online platform for future thinking in addition to the on-site gallery programming was launched. So this is a very recent addition to what Experimenter's profile does, and we'll hear more from Priyanka on the Experimenter Labs. Next up, we have Roshan Abbas, who's the founder of Staying Alive. Roshan is one of the finest orators and storytellers. Roshan Abbas is an actor, a TV and radio host, a producer, a manager, a creative director, film and theater director, lyricist, CEO, angel investor, serial entrepreneur, author, and a public speaking coach. Roshan founded and led Encompass, which is now called Geometry Encompass, as managing director, into becoming India's largest and most awarded experiential marketing agency. He was also an initial investor and continues being a mentor and partner in The Glitch. Roshan has won several national awards for TV and radio, and in 2015 co-founded Commune, a performing arts collective for storytellers. So that's Roshan. We'll have him second. Next up is Nivedita Poddar. Nivedita Poddar is the founder of Art Fervor, which is a visual discovery platform and is described as an art tech startup whose website acts as an online platform for art recommendations. Nivedita believes that art can enrich our lives immensely if we allow it to, and that it is not restricted to any particular echelon in society. Her hope with Art Fervor is to make art accessible and mainstream as possible for everyone. So it's really a digital platform, and that's where their focus area is. Next, we have Archana Prasad, who is the founder of Jaga.in. Archana Prasad has been actively engaged with technology-enabled participatory art practices for over 15 years. She engages in public awareness of the UN Sustainable Development Goals through Bengaluru Fantastic, a tech art biennale in the public space founded by her in 2017, with Dara Network, which is an online portal which she will speak a little more about. With the Dara Network, she looks at taking interest to foster creative cross-border collaborations via the mobile app and offline gatherings. Archana is a CLOR fellow and also an Arcting South Asia fellow. So these are our 4 speakers today. We're really excited to hear more from them. Before we start, I'd just quickly like to thank the Artex team and the TIFA team for making all of this happen, and the people behind the scenes. So Dipti, Yadhu, obviously Rashmi, and we have Shaunak and Pratika as well. So thank you to the whole team for putting this together. We'd also like to thank British Council and Jonathan and Komal for the kind support that they have given this session. So we're moving over now to Priyanka Raja.
Trishna, Priyanka is having some tech trouble. Shall we move on to the next speaker and then come back?
Okay, great. Roshan, can we have you go at this point if you're ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so thank you so much, Roshan.
Okay, so just give me a second. I've now got everything open. And hi, everyone. I'm just coming on. Okay, that's me. I'm just going to be sharing my screen as well to let you guys know a little bit about what we've been doing in this period of time. So I hope everyone can see it. If you can see it, then may I just request all the attendees to please raise their
yes,
hand.
Sure.
Yeah, great, lovely. Yeah, I'll make it full screen. Don't worry about that. So here we go. Okay. So the strange thing about creative disruption at any given point in time is that whichever part of there have been various times when radio gave way to television, television gave way to the entire disruption of VCRs and people having Blu-rays, etc., at their homes, which then gave way to the internet. And somewhere the arts has largely kept one side of itself. And I was reading a wonderful article where someone said this whole thing about the power of assembly, saying many of us are actually facilitating social gatherings, the power of assembly, the power of shared emotions, and we perhaps do it best in a public format. Commune is no different. I won't talk about all the other ventures, but Commune, which was set up as a platform to create great art and great artists in 2015, celebrated the art of storytelling, the art of poetry, the art of theater, and build all these into micro performances, which would then lead up to a year or end gala, which was Spoken Fest. And just like many of our clients, and actually I also wear another hat of being the head of an experiential marketing agency that believes in living commerce, which is called Geometry and Compass. And many of our clients and most people in the experiential field also were struck by something that happened, which was, I saw this actually on Varun Dugirala's feed on Instagram. I couldn't resist sharing it with you all, because there is this whole thing, everybody kept saying, oh, digital transformation is going to happen. It will take some time. And then suddenly comes this big wrecking ball and says, I'm sorry, but the time is now. We were all dipping into the pool and suddenly we've been thrown into the deep end. And when that happens, the first reaction very often that people have is panic. But I don't know how many of you read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If you haven't, I'm a big fan of the book. When this happened, the first thing that came to my mind was this, that in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a man suddenly finds that his house is in the way of an interplanetary, roadway that is being made. And they're just like, I'm sorry, we're going to destroy the Earth. And he's like, what do I do? And suddenly he's on this spaceship and he's going all across the galaxy. And in that, there is only two words that come to his support and a towel. And that is the word, don't panic. And this is what I am most worried about, that I see panicked reactions all around while this is week 4. And maybe even if you did panic, it should have settled by now. But my advice to you is don't panic, really don't panic, because what you need to do perhaps is, and I'll tell you the most interesting thing is, creators very often have this little way of, oh, we'll work together and we'll sit together and things will happen. And there's this organic way in which things happen. But the one big thing that we found was that we took a pause. So we were in the middle of an activity where we were going to go to 5 cities and travel and do these shows. And we just paused and we put out this thing saying, hey, this podcast boot camp that was going to happen. And we've been lucky that we built small communities in 10 cities over the last 2 years. And that's why we were sort of just going all the way around and going to do this in 5 cities. And suddenly we said, no, we can't do this. So the first thing to do when such transformation hits you is to pause. And when you pause, look at what are you really into? And we kept saying, okay, so what are we into? We are into creating sustainable art. We are into creating great art and great artists. And therefore, perhaps the only thing that is changing for us is our medium. Yes, some things will not be possible immediately. We'll do them in time. But the second thing, and again, I'd recommend some of you, if you can, to read about the VUCA world, which is, the American military came up with this phrase and said, a volatile, uncertain, chaotic, ambiguous world. And there are some things in that which they say. And the first thing, of course, to say is that identify what is your vision? What are you in this for? And we did that. The second thing about uncertainty is that, rather than take things as in, oh my God, I'll have a year-long plan, have a week-long plan. Every week things will change. And so we kept having week-long plans. And we paused. And the third thing they say in the VUCA world, which is about chaos, is that, you can't solve everything yourself. So we did this, which is we just got all the heads together. This is part of our team, not the entire team. There are just 17 of us at Commune. And we all got together, we put our heads together. This was an online quiz that we did with our team. We actually just wanted our team to have fun. So we got together and we said, okay, we will take this 1 week at a time. We formed a 1-week strategy. Everybody had an Excel sheet on which we broke it down into steps. And each day our team members then started saying what had they achieved. Now, the good part of giving people goals is it's fabulous to put a done against it. And that's what our team started saying. They said, it just feels so great that now we've got things that we can just commit to and do. Next is we have a large digital community. I'd recommend if any of you do not have a large digital presence, now is the time to build it. You desperately need it. I can't tell you how supportive this has been for us. We already had a community of over 6.5 lakh people between Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. If I was to remove YouTube as passive consumers, then it would be approximately about 2 odd lakhs. Now, this 2 odd lakh people that we have, we just had a bunch of open dialogues and asked them saying, so what do we do? And we got tons of suggestions. We got lots of people asking, saying, hey, I can do this. And when creativity meets technology is when great things get done. And frankly, immediately we started trying different things. So we threw many stones into the pond. I had learned this from, a very senior person at PepsiCo who said that the way to approach digital is not to spend all your money behind one thing, but to do many small things, listen and then react. So we did poetry sessions, we did doodling, we did yoga, we did chats, we did collaborations with other collectives. in these 3 weeks. I mean, we are so frenetic right now that sometimes we feel we're working twice as much as before. We did a quiz. So all of these things were done by us. And I think, I'll just give you all an idea. The other thing is pivot quickly. So that offline podcast became an online event, and that's how we handled it. Two great mediums to explore are audio and video: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. All of these are allowing you multiple new ways. Zoom is a brand new technology. Audio is a great technology. We launched 2 podcasts. We started doing various formats, including this wonderful one called Midnight Lockdown. For the larger community, we also have a role. So we said we must collaborate, we must empathize, and we must help. And so when Trishla said, I'm the head of Staying Alive is something I've just founded with a whole bunch of other collectives, where he said, we really need to save the livelihood of the artists. There are many gig workers. Again, we brought people together, and we've got like-minded partners who are now putting together a program of educating, supporting, and inspiring other artists and getting people to contribute. This is just one bunch of people. We're reaching out to multiple others. 3 days back, we did our online play. So there is an online play we did. We had about 130 people who attended. We're doing another one on Friday, which is a paid show where people are paying 299 rupees. We've opened it up for up to 500 people. So that's the level at which you can take this if you want to grow it. I have just one thing to say to everybody. In times like this, if you're an established person, sometimes you're looking for relevance or you start searching for revenue. This is the time really to innovate or incubate. And that's all I would like to leave you all with. We've had some great success, and I can discuss that with you all later, but this is how we've handled the last couple of weeks. Trishla, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Roshan. That was really insightful, and I like how you said we should pivot fast. I just wanted to prod a little bit further and ask you about the online play that you did, and how did you kind of navigate the space of an online play, and what are some of the challenges that you faced within the new format and audience interaction and the feeling of space. So just wanted to understand a little bit about how that went. Before you answer that, just quickly, if anyone has any questions for Roshan, please do ask them in the chat below, and we will address them one by one.
Okay. Go ahead, so Trishla, you know what we did with the play was that firstly we had to find a script that didn't require too much movement. Also a script where 2 people could interact in 2 different spaces. So there was a one-act play called Check Please by Jonathan Rand. I had performed it 4 years ago, so I already knew the material. We rewrote the material of blind dates to being blind online dates. Now, instead of a space which is, the frame is no longer, depth is limited, but width is not. So that this too is an acting area, this is an acting area. You can get up, you can sit down, you can tilt your screen up. There are so many things you can do. So Sheena Khalid directed it, and therefore she brought a lot of physicality into the play. I mean, you all should you're more than welcome to come on and see it on Friday. Technology, as I keep saying, don't be scared of it. If you don't know it, find someone. I'm a bit of a geek, so I started experimenting with Zoom on the very first day. And there are multiple functionalities. So just like plays have a technical director, I became the Zoom online director for the play, because it requires you to manipulate multiple things: people's cameras, slide shares, playing music from a third source outside, or embedding it into your presentation. So we did this. Sheena focused on the actors, I focused on the tech, and Tess Joseph, who's one of our other big communers, she went and cast wonderful actors in it. And we did it. After the first one, the only 2 responses we got was exactly what you said: interactivity, and somebody said, I just miss the sound of laughter. Now, I could integrate a laugh track, but I don't want to make it so synthetic. So we are toying with some people who are a live audience, like sitcoms used to have a studio audience, and a passive viewer outside. So we're going to experiment with that next time. We've also now brought in an option of choice, because if there are dates and I have enough actors waiting in Zoom rooms, all I need to do is tell the audience saying, pick a date. And now suddenly they're interactive. So you will not get interactivity at the level that you end up getting, but we'll keep building these layers. So that's how we handle it.
Super. Thank you so much. So we have some more questions from the audience. So I'll just say them here so you can answer them.
Sure.
So Neha Vyas asks, what were the ways in which you promoted this play? And I know social media is one answer, but can you share a little more light on that?
So yeah, so again, influencers and collaborative groups and communities are your biggest friends. In the first one, we reached out to everybody. We have a database at Spoken Fest of over 15,000 people, and because of all the other data capture we do, we would have a very focused database of about 3,000 to 4,000 people. So we just reached out to a bunch of them to say, would you be interested? Then, of course, because we have a lot of performers who are well known, who are influencers, we reached out to a bunch of them. You've got to make it a mix of your community of influencers and, of course, what I often call as broadcasters. So we called about 4 journalists and definitely call in brands because they have to pay. We got 20 brands into the first play, and we have 5 of them who have now signed up to do a number of shows. So that's what you do. Further promotions, you do something innovative and new, immediately people will come. This entire morning, we were all giving press interviews because everybody wants to know how did you do something new. So come up with a format that excites the press to write about it. Don't go with the same old story. That's what happens. So Neha, these are some ways that we promoted it. The cast is also well known, so they will be promoting it. 2 of them are in a film, so their own PR machineries will do the work for me, I guess.
Fantastic. I'll take the next question by Padmaja. How do you hold engagement and online, and how do you judge how active or passive your audience is, especially on platforms like Zoom, where you don't really are able to make it that interactive? So I think engagement during the session is.
Yeah. So engagement during the session is really possible. It's just that, again, you've got to be a bit of a technologist. So for example, right now, I'm not controlling this room, but Zoom also is building functionalities where you could switch on the mics of everybody at one time and put them off. Now we haven't experimented with that because what if you find a heckler in the room? So therefore we will be working with a set of special audiences. So the super fan who we really know has been a part of our community for a long time will be let into the room where their mics will be on. So that's one level of interactivity. The second thing is choice. See, the minute you do Bandersnatch, which is what we're doing. So like Netflix did with the show, that you could choose endings. There was a bunch of books when I was growing up that used to come, which used to be called Choose Your Own Ending. That's what built interactivity. So these are simple ways of building interactivity. Insider as a platform, by the way, is currently building an app on top of Zoom by which they can layer Zoom and add a whole bunch of interactive things. I really recommend that you all reach out to them. And if you can't, then you can just get in touch with Trishla and I'll be very happy to help you all. Just reach out to them because they're building some great functionality for interactivity. I think you're mute.
Oh, sorry, my bad. With your experience in improv theater, Devi asked that she's been guiding a group and it's really annoying that they can't rehearse. So I plan to do it virtually. So just wanted to know if you had any understanding of how you rehearsed for the show.
Devi, so with rehearsal, this was the thing. You've got to, again, I said, have a person who can direct tech because it's a pain. So you need one technical director and you need a performance director. So we divided it up. So Sheena kept directing the actors, saying this is a gesture you can use, this is the way you can use space, etc. Zoom is great. Don't try. We had 8 actors in the play. We only did 2 rehearsals with all the actors together because they are not needed to be in each other's physical space, and waiting online for each other is a pain in the ass, pardon my language. But if it's just 2 actors, so we did small sessions with 2 actors, works a lot better. It really works. For improv, it's great. In fact, there are 1 or 2 pieces that we are now working on. This is the first one because I think for improv, if an actor is smart enough to be able to navigate chat and performance, just imagine that somebody in the chat was telling you to do things or asking you questions, and as an actor, you were responding. So it really can work. It's just a little distracting, but just as we build tech into our lives, I mean, we're so used to multitasking with a phone and a screen and something else, you'd get around that as well.
Super, thank you so much. In the interest of time, I'm going to stop the questions as of now verbally here, but you can ask them in the chat and Roshan will answer them by typing them out in the chat box. Thank you so much, Roshan. Good luck for your next run. We're really excited that you are also experimenting with the paid model. I know we were going back and forth on how we should look at revenue models and sustainability in times like these. So I think kudos to you and the quite fast shift that you have made within your circles, and hopefully we can all do the same. Thank you so much, and please do take the questions that we have in the chat.
I'm doing that. I'm answering all the questions on the chat as it is now. Okay, guys, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Priyanka Raja. I'm just going to do a quick introduction really quick for anyone who missed it, but it's also in the chat box, which is on the bottom. The question answers are in the Q&A, just to clarify, they're two separate boxes. The chat has her introduction. Priyanka Raja is the co-founder of Experimenter, a gallery based in Kolkata, which started in 2009. Experimenter is also known for the curatorial intensive that they do, the Curators Hub. They have also recently started earlier this year the Experimenter Labs format, which is a new format, which is something that Priyanka will focus on for today's chat. So if we can have Priyanka next, please.
Hi, thank you, Trishla, and thank you, ACRI and TIFA. This has been fantastic. And Roshan, you were really great. It's really fascinating to see how across the industries and across disciplines that we seem to be thinking around the same sort of dimensions. I'll share my screen right now and share the work we're trying to do at the moment. Yeah. Can you see?
Yes, Priyanka, we can. If you could just make it full screen. Yeah, perfect.
So experimental labs. So, you know, we work in the area of visual arts, which is quite sort of nascent in the contemporary practice in India. And the kind of work that we do, there are galleries doing the same, but not so much in an organized sort of format for a country as large as ours. So often, of course, given that it's so nascent, often what needs to be done in showing regular practice, exhibiting, etc., at a certain global standard is still to be done. So imagine testing and trying to think for the future still quite far away. So, so with the scenario that we are currently faced with, it's sort of time to do what, or take leaps and jumps in thinking, in rethinking, and remodeling how any industry works, including the arts. So with that in mind, we started Experimental Labs. As you said, Trishla, the gallery is run by Pratik, my husband, and I, and it's a co-thinking space. So there are about 17 other people who work very, very closely. So everything that I will present today is a co-thought idea. It's envisaged as a place, a laboratory-like place to think of the future of the gallery model. And there are 7 different areas that we've started working on. The first being something called Generator, which is going to be a cooperative art production fund. So for those of you who are in the audience right now and are in the field of visual arts, you would know that there's almost no production fund in the country, which is sort of open, which is an open source kind of fund. This is something we've been thinking about for 4 years, but never got around doing it. What we're currently doing is basically playing matchmaker. We've contacted over 112 different individuals in the world, which includes our 21 artists, patrons, collectors, friends of Experimenter, and the Experimenter team. And all of these people have committed a certain budget. So now that budget could have been anything between 5,000 to about 2.5 lakhs, which is our biggest commitment from an individual source. And we have sent out an open call for grants for artists as micro bursaries, which is basically small funds between $500 to $2,000 as an ongoing sort of production budget where they don't have to give work away as they normally do for various funds, or sort of where there is no exchange but just support at this moment in time. We take from say the donor and match make them to the person who's deserving of that loan, and just play just play the role of a bridge at the moment. So no costs for administrative or other heads. Yeah, no limitations on age, region, provenance, none of that, because we, also the programming of Experimenter, it isn't location focused. So while we say that, it will obviously be for artists whose nationalities don't really bear enough support from the government or other sources. Black Box, this is something we just announced an open call for, an online platform for digital projects. It was very fascinating to hear from Roshan what they're already doing. But in the arts, especially the visual arts, we're very, very sort of silo oriented, where we don't sort of think beyond a certain type of practice. And at Experiment, in any case, we have constantly cross connected with different disciplines. But in this format of thinking, we are very keen to find projects that can be done in an online space that are multidisciplinary. So from theater to dance to fine art, and how can we sort of embrace a multidisciplinary approach to presenting and thinking, which in a way could have an on-site presence at the time when an on-site presence is possible. But at the moment, how can we think of a online presence? Yeah, the identity. Filament, this is a program that we've had for the last few years, where we have a certain month in the gallery. Our program is very moving image heavy, and we have this format where for the whole month, there are films from across the world, artists within our program and outside, presenting their work with conversations and of course the presentation of the films. But the Filament here will be an online model where multiple artists such as Moira Devi, Naeem Mohammed, Ashish Abikunta, very difficult to get access to these films, will be on an open source format. The Reader, which is a guest edited online anthology, we've been in touch with some fantastic writers, philosophers, some photographers for an online anthology, which would be freely accessible. We anyway have a unit called Experimenter Books, where we self-publish one artist book a year and the annual book. Some of you would have seen this we've done for 10 years, but now this would be an online guest edited anthology, The Reader. Often, again, in the field of visual arts, everything is so sort of insular that sharing beyond sort of theoretical texts or scholarly texts, there is nothing much more that one can access when you're thinking about the artist, unless you know the artist one-on-one. Sort of very important sometimes to think about what constitutes this artist's world. Who are their peers? Who influences their thinking? What really happens in the back end? What's happening in the studio? So Deep Dive, a series of artist and peer conversations, which is going to be led by Bani Abidi, who's a Pakistani artist based in Berlin. She is now, the first set of such deep dives are on her relationship with her peers. And the first set is called Karachi, because it deals with the city and deals with her thinking. But there are so many such relationships that we will find similarities to. Also sort of takes away the idea of thinking of borders, thinking of thinking of what a time like this means, where you don't leave your home, but there's so many commonalities across the world when you're thinking of what makes the personal. This Experimental Radio is our Spotify channel. We've been growing this rapidly. This is an open Spotify channel where at the moment there are about 50, 60 different artists, thinkers, writers, philosophers, patrons of the arts who have their favorite music up there. And this is really something we did as a fun initiative, and it's really picked up. So over the next few weeks, we hope to have hundreds of such playlists, and it's pretty good. Listen to it when you get a chance. It's called Experimental Radio. The learning program, something that we started a couple of years ago in our physical gallery, where we wanted to rethink when you think of an art gallery, you think of a passive space of engagement when you go see. The art is already presented to you, but how can you change that to an active place of engagement? How can you think of that as a classroom space to learn and sort of widen what you may be doing? You may be a teacher, a banker, but you may be interested in, say, experimental filmmaking, or you may be interested in poetry writing. So we opened this, and we've already done a bunch of fantastic classroom models. We now plan to take some of them online for those. And I'm, again, as I found Roshan's advice on what could go online quite interesting. So I'm hoping to learn from each of you. These are the few things that we're doing as part of experimental labs. And I'm happy to talk more in the question and answer time. Yeah. I got a phone call to, I think, wind up. So is it time to wind up?
Yes, Priyanka, unfortunately, it is time for the presentation half of it. So we will take questions from the audience at this point. Just to start off, well, thank you for the presentation. I'd just start off with the first question. So how did you kind of envisage experimental labs? You said you've been thinking about it a while, so this is maybe the right time to introduce it, but there are multiple different segments in which you've imagined the labs. And unlike the UK, where they do have the Arts Council that does support artists and creative professionals, in India, we do not have a forum like that. So also the extension of the grant and the microbursary that does exist, how do you see this panning out? And what is the timeline that you have set out for experimental labs? Because even though the situation has started today, we do not know the impact and effects of what the lockdown and how long we will be in lockdown for.
Yeah.
So if you could shed a little bit of light on that.
Yeah. So I have to tell you how we started was out of, so for the first week, the gallery closed on 17th of March, and ever since we've been working from home. The first week, us, both Pratik and I, and the team, we basically were sat. We didn't know how to deal with this whole change. We are a group of people who plan 2 years in advance. We know every single talk, every single event, every single exhibition, art fair, etc. that we will do. So suddenly dealing with this kind of change was really overwhelming. So out of that gloominess came moments where we would just brainstorm and start thinking about what we should do now. And experimental labs came through those conversations. Every day at 3 p.m. the team connects, and then people started putting back ideas that we've had for a long time. So each of these 7 elements that we've spoken about, some were already live, some of it we've spoken about several times, but just not put it into order. So it was more of making sure that ideas that we had for all this while come alive. And when you asked about so we don't know how long this may go on for. Now this, for everything that experimental starts, we somehow hope and intend to take, continue irrespective of, whether the lockdown opens, whether life goes back to normal. Now these will be our further commitments from what the on-site gallery programming does. You asked something about generator fund. Sorry, Trishla, can you repeat your question?
Yes. So I was just asking the overall model of it, and we have a question actually from the audience, from Wayne Pinto from the RX team. So kudos on the generator fund. What do you hope to see emerge from the art production fund?
Yeah, so the generator fund, thanks Wayne for the question. The generator fund is specifically for artists not represented by experimental, because the logic is that they already have us. They don't need a microbursary or a fund. Hopefully the gallery can support their practice. So what kind of art? Very difficult to say, but I'm hoping art which is a little bit less inhibited, when they can produce for the sake of making the work and not so much about what finally happens to that work or whether it is collected or not collected. So the idea of making work for art's sake. Yeah.
Okay, great. Just want to push that further. Is there any, so in what way do you decide who gets the funds, who doesn't get the funds? What kind of practices will be supported? How many practices are you willing? Because it's also complicated questions as to maybe someone who can very easily convert their practice to a digital spectrum, while as traditional artists or painting, which are mediums that may not be able to translate to it.
Right,
So
right.
is there some kind of thinking gone into how will the jury for this kind of micro bursary function?
Yeah, there has been, I mean, at least we think there has been significant thinking that has gone in for generator. If you go onto our website and if you're able to download the form that one has to fill up for the fund, you'll see there are various sorts of specifications and trying to understand what you need to apply with. So there are various things that we're checking for. How will one decide whether so and so is sort of more apt as a candidate to get the fund as opposed to the other? There's going to be a 4-member jury. It's a rotating jury. Two artists from the experimenter roster, one outside of our roster, and one experimenter director. Of course, it's going to be about who we think is most sort of who suits this sort of production model. As I said, it'll definitely be for artists who do not have another way to access another fund. So say, because there is no nationality based application, it's not going to be for someone whose country already has multiple funds for artists. It's going to be for A, work that we think is most challenging or most sort of promising, and B, that may not get support otherwise. In terms of timelines, we have a 60-day timeline. We will have the rolling jury meeting every 30 days for how many ever applications we get at the time. Because the idea of a micro bursary is not 2 or 3 bursaries a year. It could be 100, depending on how much we will be able to support and depending on how much money that the whole kitty has and how can we disburse it. So we're basically taking and then disbursing as we get the fund. So as fast as we are about organizing the money, we'll just disburse it. So it's a cooperative fund, yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much, Priyanka. There's a few questions in the chat and also a question from Roshan in terms of what is the revenue model behind this? And I know you mentioned that there will be funders and patrons and buyers and friends who will be supporting it. And there's also Rashmi's question in the chat. So I think you can take both of those offline since we're out of time, so you can take them in the chat. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing the vision for experimental labs and looking to see what comes of it. And the open call is open as in for artists to apply. So please take the opportunity if there are any artists in the group. Thank you so much, Priyanka.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye. Up next, we have Nivedita Poddar. Nivedita is the founder of Art Fervor, which is an art tech platform and works on accessibility and making art mainstream for a wider audience. They have their engagement through Instagram, but also through their website, and a lot of exciting quizzes and puzzles that are being introduced every day. So if we can have Nivedita on next, please.
Hi, Trishla, thanks. Hi, everyone, this is Nivedita. Firstly, Trishla, ACRI, British Council, thank you so much for inviting me. And Roshan and Priyanka, thank you. That was very inspiring and a lot of valuable insights, even for me. I'm just going to share screens. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I just want to start by telling you all very quickly a little bit about Art Fervor. We just turned 1 in March, and we are, as Trisha mentioned earlier, a digital platform. And once I've done that, I'll move on to how we rebuilt our digital strategy and the process we followed for our pivot. Please feel free to ask me questions and I will take them up later. So what really is Art Fervor? Art Fervor is a visual discovery art platform. We aim to make the arts easy to access, make it fun, and make it personalized. We curate personalized art guides and recommendations of galleries, museums, exhibitions, festival, art events that happen outside of galleries and museums in independent spaces, currently in 10 cities in India. We use technology to personalize your discoveries. So you can go onto our platform, play a quick game, and you assign an art persona and discover the best art events suited for your persona wherever you are. We collaborate with galleries and museums to make the arts accessible to a larger audience by creating fun, interesting digital content across our website, social media, gamifying, and creating offline art experiences. These are a few examples of what we've done over the last year. So we collaborated with Serendipity Arts Foundation for 3 months over the Dharti Arts Residency, where across our social media and our website, we did eke into an artist residency. These are some images from an augmented art reality experience that we did earlier this year in January at a street art festival in Calcutta. We basically created a street museum and brought together 10 highly unusual artworks. And we used the augmented reality to tell stories about each of these artworks. This is a digital walkthrough that we did with Pulp Society and Sitara, also earlier this year around India Art Fair. So we basically use creative strategy to help make the arts more accessible as opposed to somebody reading a book or reading an interview. Moving on to talking about building digital strategies and pivoting in the time of crisis, we went back to thinking about how we reshaped the plans that we already had. And I think we ended up resorting to a 4-step process. The first step for us was to revisit what Art4Over's core mission, vision, and values were, and question why do we do what we do, and what is it that draws our audience to Art4Over. The main aim of what we do is accessibility, personalization, and relatability. We want to make the arts accessible to a larger audience while making it fun and relatable. Revisiting our macro vision and fundamentals was an important step in pivoting our digital strategy immediately so as not to get carried away from bigger picture things in a panic. Next, I'd like to say we moved on to reimagining how we do things. Despite Art4Over being a tech platform, our work is very collaborative and closely linked with what artists, galleries, museums, art communities are doing on ground. And we also ask our audience to go out there and explore and discover for themselves what's on. That being said, without much offline activity in the arts, we were forced to go back to the drawing board and refigure and realign ourselves. Also, I would say we had to rethink how we function in the digital space and explore and maximize on the technology we use and innovate. For example, like we're using Zoom. And one thing that drove how we brainstormed was keeping our audience in mind, considering the fact that audiences are looking for breaks and how we could empathize with them and give them something light and fun-hearted. Fun and light-hearted. This also led us to start looking at ourselves more as creators and what we could do in the digital space as opposed to just curators. All of this led to re-energizing how we used our time and how we functioned and thought as a team. We function very similarly to a creative studio, and basis projects, everybody brainstorms, comes up with ideas, and it was crucial that this realignment of a vision was brought to everyone across the team and we're all on the same page. That being said, we also think this is a great time for us to push our boundaries outside of how we may have been. thinking earlier and experiment and be more imaginative than we usually are. I would now like to move on to how we sort of looked at pivoting and like some of the strategies that we're using. I definitely believe that there's a new world post-COVID that is going to come, and it is here to stay. So the pivots that we made, we thought of from a short, medium, and long-term strategy, as opposed to let's change everything now and do it now. We also knew that it had to be technology and innovation driven, keeping in mind changing user behaviors and needs post-COVID. The first thing that we did was we changed our narrative and our strategy with Stay Home with Art Fervor, which is directly aimed to have a two-pronged purpose. One, that we hear with our audience when you need the arts, and two, we want to do whatever we can to push correct information for the safety of our community. Social distancing, self-isolation, and being safe at home were driving factors for this change in our narrative, which we undertake on our social media, a lot of the collaborations that we are now starting to do, as well as our publications. So the first thing that we did was we launched about 2.5 weeks ago, a quarantine guide to the arts. Keeping in mind that we provide personalized art guides and recommendations, we built a digital directory curated for different art personas, which contain online exhibitions, virtual tours, artist interviews, live streams, workshops. There's a lot of fun stuff. There's some podcasts. And the great thing that came out of this for us was that we were restricted physically to India, but now we are very global with what we list on our guide. To keep our audiences who wanted something more fun and light engaged, we created a fun activity that we do across our platforms, where every day we put up a new challenge. We've also launched a host of interactive games on our website. We also launched a host of interactive games on our website. They're all art inclusive and educational, a way for art enthusiasts to learn and have fun. Also, I'm gonna make it very quick now. So Fresh AF is basically, we create some very exciting fresh artists, keeping these artists in mind and COVID and maybe helping them out. We are deciding to reboot Fresh AF. So we want to give them access to our platform and free space on our platform to exhibit the work that they do for increased visibility, and provide a way for our audience to have access to these artists as well. And maybe someone like a Priyanka will discover a great artist that they may not otherwise find because they are very, very young. Also, finally, just a glimpse, I don't have an image for it, but we are working on this. We're basically in the process of creating something which we see more as a medium and long-term initiative, is a collaborations only community initiative, maintaining the belief that the arts are essential, and a lot of us have turned to the arts in this time of adversity. And we want to create a larger narrative to as to how we want to make the visual arts accessible, preferably direct to your home, and how that would change in the post-COVID world once things go back to normal also, using technology. So, but we have to wait for that because that's something we're still working on. And yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nivedita. Thank you for sharing a little bit about how Art Fervor functions. I'd just like to ask you the question on revenue models and how, being a primarily digital platform, the change might not have been as drastic for you as an organization, yet the revenue models which you generally operate within were the galleries and museum structures. How does that also impact the work that you do, and what are new directions that you're looking at from a sustenance point of view?
That's a great question, because it's something that we basically spent all of March working on. We had a lot of things lined up, and some of them were digital, but a lot of them were also offline. We need to be at a gallery or at a museum to shoot content, take photos, talk to people, look at the artwork. And to be honest, some of them have been pushed. We are still trying to sort of transform some of the collaborations that we had in mind and see what we can do even now. So yeah.
Okay, super. We have a question from the audience from Sharvari. What kind of collaborations have you done with museums in the past? And is there anything in the pipeline considering collabs during lockdown and lockdown?
So we do have something very exciting in the pipeline. It isn't out yet, so I'm not sure I want to talk about it. But we are trying to create a game, and we hope it works out. So yeah, we have to wait until it's done because it's even hard for the team at the museum to be there. So
definitely. So gamification is a model that you are looking at for more online engagement. I think the questions are still coming in slowly, so I think we'll move on to Archana, and then we can discuss any of the questions that come up in the Q&A box as we go along. Thank you so much, Nivedita, for sharing what the work that Art Forward does, and we'll look out for all these games that are coming up soon.
Thank you.
So we have Archana Prasad next. Archana is the founder of Jaga Inn, which is a space in Bangalore, and has also founded Bengaluru Fantastic, which is an art, tech, and public art festival that happens in Bangalore. I'll bring Archana on. Archana has not recently, but over the last few years, has also built a new network called Dara, which is an online network, which I'd love for her to speak a little bit more about, to look at new ways in which the arts can survive within this digital time frame.
Thanks for that introduction, Trishla. And thanks all of you for hanging in there and giving me the space to speak. I'm going to share my screen. Give me a sec. There we go. And I'll make it in present mode. All right, so I want to take you guys through the next 10 minutes over 4 large areas of thinking. One is how do we locate ourselves during these kinds of difficult times? But even as we go forward, what are the ways that we can learn to find where we are at this moment? How do we adapt? So, how do we keep our teams involved and excited? How do we set up rituals given that now we're, working from home? How do we engage? Especially with our audiences, what new ways can we come up with, and how do we evolve? Basically, what are we doing to shift into the new paradigm that we find ourselves in, and kind of probably will continue to be in for years to come. So I started Jaga about 11 years ago, 10 years ago. Anyway. And our organization was kind of looking at the intersection of community practice, technology, and practice. And I know that organizations like ours, in particular, are going through a really hard time at this moment. We support a co-working community that now has an alumni of about 400 members, and has supported several startups to spin off. And I think one of the spin-offs that we've done internally is Dara, about 1.5 years ago, supported by a British Council grant. Dara is an online platform. It's a mobile app, started off as an AI-based chatbot that would help artists and creators discover each other, discover opportunities, kind of leveraging some of the best technologies of the time. And shortly, we hope to launch a mobile app version of that. In 2017, December, we also started an art festival in public space called Bengaluru Fantastic. It was looking at how does the true power of technology, which we believe strongly to be in its interactive nature. How can we leverage that through the arts and into public space, specifically focused on UN Sustainable Development Goals? Today we're looking at how do we translate that public space festival into a learning space for creators to understand, engage with technologies today, and also for the public. So there's some stuff there. But really, I think I'd like to get back to that idea of locate. And this is a video that I found. It's by the Conscious Leadership Group, a brilliant website for you guys to peek at. I'm going to play this, a clip from one of their videos, starting now.
Stop right now and simply ask yourself, where am I? In this now moment, am I above the line or below the line? Typically, when people are below the line, they believe certain things about the world. For example, they believe there is not enough. It could be that there's not enough money, or time, or space, or energy, or love. People below the line also believe that their story about the situation is right. People below the line also believe that there is a threat out there. Something or someone is threatening their desire for approval, control, or security. And people below the line see the situation as serious. The deeper below the line they are, the more serious things look. People below the line tend to behave certain ways as well. They tend to cling to an opinion, find fault and blame, gossip, explain, rationalize and justify, get overwhelmed, and avoid conflict or pursue conflict for the sake of winning. When people are above the line, they believe that learning and growing are more important than being right. They believe that all people and circumstances are their allies, here for their growth. They believe that from a distance, almost everything is funny. People above the line live in curiosity, listen deeply, speak unarguably, question all their beliefs, and live a life of play. Now, knowing what you know about being above or below the line, where are you? Stop right now and simply ask yourself.
Right. That video is interesting to me, I think, for one big reason, which is that several of us will find ourselves currently below the line. And honestly, we are hardwired. The video goes on to explain that we're hardwired to constantly push ourselves below the line. But the ask I make of all of us today, including myself, is how do we stay above the line? What are the kinds of online resources we can find? I found that meditation apps are great. Learning a new skill is exciting and kind of encouraging to me. Really spending time with people online on one-on-ones is great. So what are the ways that we can constantly push ourselves to stay above the line? Because that's where the innovation, the creativity, the collaboration, all of the things that previous speakers have talked about come in to our world as well. Right. I think that as we look at this moment where we are forced to work remotely, one of the big questions that jump out at us is how do we get our teams to adapt? And by teams, it could be a small team of 2 or 3 collaborators working on a project. It could be a team of 20 or 30, maybe even 50 or 100. And it's not a one size fits all. What I have kind of learned over the years is that protocols are important, particularly when the protocols move online. So at Jaga, we used to do a daily stand-up where all of us would spend half an hour together, standing, usually even lesser than that, kind of saying, okay, what are the things we've achieved? What are the things we haven't done, and where are we blocked? How can we do that now online? What are the tools we can use? And how can I as a leader or as an anchor to the project insist upon things like punctuality or kind of really be present at the times that I stipulate? Rituals. But this is actually one of the best versions of rituals that I've seen in one of these really successful companies, is this, this thing of celebrate, appreciate, and reflect. Once a week, the team, each of them take turns and they reflect on some of the challenges they faced, a gripe that I have, oh man, this thing is not working, I'm really upset about it. One day a week, we all take turns to appreciate someone in our team who's done a big one for us, someone in our team who's gone out of their call of duty, or even just has done their work wonderfully well. And each of us taking that time to appreciate someone else in the team really kind of brings a warm glow and a sense of team spirit. And then thrice a week, we celebrate each other. And this celebration moment is something that is in my personal life or in my work life that I want to share with everyone and kind of have them do a rara. And I think that these rituals become really critical when we're working offline, because as we all know, a lot of these things happen, on a chai break or, over lunch or, and so how do we create these mechanisms, but in an online way? So camaraderie, humor, can we play a game once a week using Zoom or any of these things, just to keep us all together. And this really is critical to being able to become functional as a team, not sitting next to each other, but really being mentally together. What are our remote tools? And some of the tools I've found really useful: Google Suites, great for collaborative content. Marco Polo, a new one, about a couple of years old, but brilliant for asynchronous video messages. So you can lead, so we actually can do our daily stand-ups on Marco Polo and not be worried that people have to show up on time for a particular meeting, but can actually work with the craziness of home chores and homeschooling and all of the things that is coming our way as we work from home. Asana is a brilliant tool for task management, project management. I encourage some of you to look at that. Slack is kind of an archived version of WhatsApp. Telegram is kind of I'd say the better WhatsApp. And Zoom Hangouts, you guys know this. Some of the processes that are actually, honestly, business standards, over the years, I've started to use them: Agile, RACI, and Gantt. And Gantt is this picture that you see here. It looks really complex, but what it does is it asks you to break down your tasks and put it to a timeline, and then also show up the dependencies. If I don't complete my work by day after tomorrow, then my colleague can't actually finish their work, and this has a domino effect. And when people see it mapped out like that, a sense of ownership and responsibility certainly comes in. Engagement. Some of our speakers earlier today are really brilliant at it, and I'm really going to speak to a couple of points that I've come to appreciate in this moment. And one is that as we struggle as a small organization that's autonomous, can we share our struggles? Can we seek advice and help from our community? They may be audiences, they may be stakeholders, they may be kind of remote supporters. How can we create a sense of ownership in our larger circles? And it's a real opportunity at this point and worth leveraging. How do we look at growth? And one of the things I've been thinking about is, can we give access to some of the services or products that we have freely and kind of like employ this freemium model, keeping in mind that perhaps later I can charge for it. And really the big thing to note there is redesign your website or your online presence to show up that thing that you're serving up for free at this moment, because later that can become an income source for your organization or yourself individually as an artist. And then honestly, share your learnings and offer your support. One-on-one time mentoring, peer mentoring is an amazing gift that you can give. And sharing your learnings on any kind of public platform, written, video, audio, is really incredibly valuable and will help you grow your community as well. And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about this word abundance, and it's a meditation course I'm currently on by Deepak Chopra. I encourage several of you who haven't tried it to go ahead and try that if you can spare half an hour a day. And like in this time of social lockdown, of physical isolation, how can we come together? And our friends at ISRO are doing a brilliant job of radio quarantine. Our speakers earlier have clearly illustrated, incredibly brilliant ways of sharing their content socially and creating a space for people to come together. Sell online. What can you ticket? What can you sell? And this is really going back to the previous slide of what you offer for free could become something you charge for later as you go along into the next year. And then finally, I think this is something that the art and culture sector is particularly, I'd say, gifted at, is like, can we use donation models to bolster our eventual revenue? And can we create gatherings? Now, we know how to create an art opening. We know how to create a theater play in a particular space, or a party or a festival. How can we create these kinds of online gatherings that are tied into donations, that are also tied into tickets? And these three things coming together, I think we can all do really well. And I'm going to leave you with something that Toni Morrison has said in, really well, which is now is the time for us to get good at what we need to get, to learn the skills we need to learn, and to start our journey forward and onwards. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much, Archana. That was great. Thank you for sharing an overview of what you've been doing at Jaga. I just wanted to kind of go back a little bit into Dhara to have you speak a little bit about what the network actually does and how it functions, and how does it kind of assist the creative community. So if you could just shed a little bit of light on that.
So when we first started Dhara, AI was kind of the big catchphrase, and with British Council support, we were really able to build out a chatbot that could speak somewhat humanly and ideally matchmake between artists or designers. The eventual goal would be that it helps you manage your alumni networks if you're a scholarship or fellowship or arts organization. It helps you keep them in touch with each other, keep you in touch with them. These are some of the big gaps that I've seen and felt with running Jaga. Like, we're a small, extremely resource-strapped organization. Research for opportunities takes up an incredible amount of very precious time. Keeping in touch with our own alumni is also very, very hard to do when we're small and bootstrapped. And so the idea was, can Dhara, who is this amazingly intelligent chatbot, step in and do that in a really kind of economical and efficient way. Over the last year, we've done a bunch of user testing. Dhara's actually facilitated offline network gatherings, which help people engage in deeper, more meaningful conversations at these gatherings, rather than just kind of the superficial, hey, hi, how are you, or stuff like that. As well as kind of really understood how does cross-border communications happen one-on-one, intimately, and one-to-many. And then based on those findings, we've gone ahead, published a couple of papers, but also started to develop a mobile app that, if all things go well, we'll release in the next, in the next month. The big ask is we are looking towards organizations, big, medium, small, to join us in providing their networks, in providing their communities, in joining Dhara, because she's only as good as all of us wanting to get together.
Fantastic. Well, Tifa's already signed up. I got the app and tried her out, and it's a fantastic chatbot. We've shared the link in the chat group if anyone wants to check it out. It is a bot, so the more information you get, the better it understands our ecosystems, the better it will function over time. There was another conversation that Archana had brought up, and also being an independent network, how Dara really has more flexibility and has more possibilities of what it can do from direct creative community sharing, as opposed to a more top-down or a governmental approach, or a larger institution like Google or Zoom, who do have a lot more or different kinds of privacy concerns. So I think that is something that can provide a alternative option maybe for the creative community in the future. Sorry, go ahead.
Trishla, you bring up a really good point, which is the only way, especially the contemporary arts sector, is going to survive the economic meltdown that we're going to face over the coming year is if we band together. That's my absolute belief. And that perhaps some of these kinds of initiatives that several of us are doing might leverage each other in terms of what they've developed, and in terms of the time and insights that have been put in. I think it's kind of like the most opportune moment, and really the most critical thing that we can do is to shed our fears of each other, and kind of become as generous and as collaborative in spirit as we possibly can muster.
Okay, super. I'm gonna ask all the other speakers to come on board. We will take some questions as a kind of panel, if it's possible for us to all come on to the chat now. And if anyone has any generic questions for anyone on the panel and or about this situation, it's also a forum for us to discuss and share, as Roshan, as Archana, as all the other speakers, as how will we survive this period? So I think that's a question that I will put out to all of our speakers at this point, and as we wait for other people in the conversation to send in their questions as well, what are ways in which we can collaborate as creative organizations, as independent organizations within this space for the longer duration which we're going to be this, and also the impacts of the situation, which will essentially last the entire financial year. So we're looking at all the way up till March 2021. So I know a lot of different organizations, and they're also as participants on this call, right from Harkats to Alliance Française to British Council, and also how different organizations, Nilankur from DAS, some independent curators. So I think it's really important for us to discuss together is what are collaborative opportunities. So if you all could each one maybe talk about some platforms. I'll just quickly highlight also that Rashmi from Artex and also Hina Siddiqui, who's an independent curator from Pune, are both working on a kind of database to collate information of studies, crisis management, and different case studies that we can reflect on and use as references to maybe build our new strategy. So if you do want access to them, we can share links going forward here. So over to you guys. Roshan, would you like to take that? Archana, you can take it as well.
Sure. I was actually saying, Archana, do you want to go first? Because I quite enjoyed what, firstly, everyone, I thought that was really wonderful. It was just so nice to, I mean, you know, via what ACRI and TIFA have done and how everyone has come together and done this. I mean, I think we've all just discovered each other at one level, right? I mean, we didn't know of each other's work. We may have known of, you know, the individual organizations. So I think one of the simplest things, and we've tried this all of last week, is that we picked 3 other collectives who were in the performance art space, and we just did 1-hour chats. Now, the simplest thing is that if we have 70,000 followers and they have an equivalent amount, there will be a certain amount of cross-pollination. So these are just very simple ways, because you have the technology. Instagram allows you to do these lives, and now, you know, they themselves are realizing the changes they need to make. So if you see, they brought in this question little thing, which has now come in. Earlier we used to keep scrolling through the chat to try and find a question. Now they've got a question little sticker which comes on. Yesterday or day before, they added a way that you can almost now show a presentation or put in a picture. So I keep saying this, have someone in your team who's constantly being aware of technology and what to do next with it, because it's important. I see so many people looking like deers caught in the headlight when they're using tech now that it's a huge problem. And you have to adapt to it, because if you don't, you can choose to sit this one out, but for how long, I don't know. The second thing I feel is that a bunch of people were asking this thing saying, we are new artists, we are artists who are doing things, we've just started out, what do we do? We're not big enough digitally. What do, you know, but there is really no, I kept saying that I talked to a bunch of people, because from artists to collectives to platforms to ticketing platforms, I deal with a lot of these people. So I get to understand. So don't press that go live button without thinking of what you're doing, because that's the biggest disservice you're doing, I feel, because a journalist said amazingly that if everybody's going live at 8 p.m., then who's watching? You know, because that's it. Everybody just press that button and says, let's go. But have you thought about it? And a bunch of people are doing, like Amit Tandon is doing a comedy show. He's thought it through. He's built a backdrop. He's found a part of his home which is quiet. He's letting super fans in who he can chat with and who he can rib off. Because he told me, he says, you know, I used to charge 1,000 rupees for people to come and watch a show. I realized that 200 was for the jokes and 800 was for the live presence. मुझसे शायद बात करेंगे. So he says, I'm still trying to translate. So deeply analyze. You know, what Archana said about saying that, you know, you've got to first locate yourself, which is what I said. Pause. Don't jump in. Pause, think it through, find mentors. There are enough people doing workshops, teaching people. You can enrich yourself. You can, as I said, you know, you can incubate, you can innovate, you can think of revenue, or you can think of relevance, but just reach out. I think everyone half the time just gets stuck in this thing of saying, what will they say? Nobody will say anything. Everybody will either tell you that they're busy and will come back to you. But I really think that art has a lot of heart. I'm sorry to this sounds a little corny, but it's just that I really believe it. When you reach out to people and they chat, they talk, they discuss, use that time and use it well.
Thank you so much, Roshan. Just before someone else takes it out, because it might be getting delayed, there is a feedback form that has been posted in the chat group. So before you leave, we please do request you to fill that out so we can get better at doing this and having more conversations through these digital platforms and learn from this session. But over to Archana, I think, who's speaking next.
Thanks for that. So there are a couple of questions that I think I'd like to respond to in particular. One was about how do these, so I think Sangamitra, no, not Sangamitra, someone has said here that how do the cultural organizations come together, and how do you kind of negotiate the outputs and ownership of those outputs? And it's a really valid question. Each of us are holding on to some of our expertise, some of our content, some of our artists. And so how does the landscape of collaboration cross-organization look? I think that it just starts with trust. And that's something that perhaps this moment in time provides us, that we trust that, you know, like Roshan said, there's a lot of heart in this space, a lot of heart. And so, you know, can we trust cross-organizational collaborations? And something that one of my mentors said a long time ago was, do what only you can do, right? So it does give us the opportunity as organizations, but also as individual artists, to really take this time to understand what is the one thing that is a differentiator that Jaga can do really well, and can we offer that up as our core expertise in this kind of cross-collaborative way of thinking, you know? So there's that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm passing out now, but yeah. I think the other stuff I'll take in text responses.
Okay, fantastic. Nivedita, Priyanka, would you like to respond to the question around collaboration and how times like this will spurt, and also how digital platforms can, like experimental labs or Art for Work, can also help connect artists and use new opportunities like this for art production?
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree, Krishna. Not just for experimental labs, but I can see a much greater receptivity or openness to wanting to join hands, wanting to collaborate, a lot like what Archana is talking about, that this is the moment it has never been more opportune, because people are now realizing that without collaboration, without joining their hands, they're just left as a singular voice. But when you cross collaborate across the board, not just galleries to galleries, but galleries to various things, individuals to organizations, visual arts to literary arts, just constantly cross collaborate and think about what you distinctively have to offer. One of the things that I wanted to say is we have to rethink the whole, how do you make your resource out of it, or how do you earn out of this model? Because different people have been used to making their resource through, or they have been used to, their resource models have been different pre-COVID, pre-change, and it is going to be very different as we move along. So the minute you sort of come to terms with that, with the whole idea of change, will you be able to collaborate? Because otherwise you ask the same questions that you asked before the change happened.
Nivedita, would you like to come in?
Yeah, so in the essence of what Art Forward does, we already collaborate with whoever we work with. We haven't really been, we work with the artists, with the galleries, with curators. And it's very interesting for us to also see now how other organizations are using the digital space. And honestly, we are learning a lot from it. One thing that Roshan said that was so true, that I completely agree with, that we do, being a tech platform ourselves, is constantly being up to date with what's happening with our different platforms, because you can be left behind in like 12 hours. And for us to sort of be at the forefront as people in the arts who have the capability to create collaborations, it's so important to know what's happening and what are the different innovations available to us. I thought the play that Lockdown Love, I had no idea. I think it's so interesting. And my first thought was, could we curate an exhibition that doesn't feel like just a virtual tour of sort of flipping images? And would that interest an audience? I'm not thinking of it from a revenue generation perspective, just as something that could sort of help bring a visual arts experience to someone who's at home. So, yeah.
Sorry, I was absolutely muted. So I think one question that everyone is dealing with, and also the constant badgering that everyone is talking about, oh, you have to be productive, you have to make sure to make most of this time, is really how do we stay inspired and working? I think more than productive, it's just continue to work within this environment. And also, how do we motivate our teams and keep them fulfilled and manage tasks during this period? And how do we kind of balance ourselves and the people around us? And that's again a question for everyone of how do you do it in your organization, and also how do you do it on a personal front. And I think the question was by Aditi Rakhe.
Well, I was just typing an answer to her, but there are some tools that I found really useful, and Marco Polo leads on that in terms of like, how do you keep your team engaged, but still very much being constantly aware that each of us have multiple hats that we wear. We're mothers, we're daughters, we're husbands, we're wives, so there's all kinds of roles that we kind of has sat upon our head in a way that hasn't done before all simultaneously, right? So Marco Polo does this great in that the team is able to keep in touch asynchronously, but through a very rich video kind of way. The other thing that I would stress upon, and this is really key, is that you have to ask for support. You have to ask for help. You have to get good at asking. That means to your audiences, that means to your team members, and that means to your own families, which means things like me time, even if it's like a 15-minute downtime for yourself, to just keep yourself going. We're in a marathon, right? We're not in a sprint, we're in a marathon. So we've got to keep our mental health, physical health strong. I found schedules like family schedules really help. So people have chores assigned, people have downtime assigned. Now, of course, all of this can go belly up, but at least everyone's kind of trying to work with that, and that gives a sense of purpose even to my 6-year-old. He reads it and he's like, this is my movie time, or this, so I feel like it gives us a sense of how to take it day by day and then week by week. And this is, I think, something that, especially as women who juggle both creative careers, organizational careers, and family life, this is something that we have to get really good at very quickly. And we can. And they're tools. They're really good tools. I'll make a list and send that out as well.
Thank you, Archana. I think Priyanka wanted to go next.
Yeah, no, I was typing to Parikshit, who said, as visual art practitioners, does it seem that the mediums we have been pursuing needs to change? And if we start posting all works on social media, doesn't it change the way we look at art or the way we experience it? Yes, absolutely. Please don't feel compelled to post all the works that you make on social media. It's absolutely not necessary. And also it's not necessary to change what you were working on, because that you were working on something because you believed in that particular form of practice. Unless you naturally would like to change your medium, change your way of practice, don't get compelled into doing something just because you need to reach that out to the world. I mean, things will remain the same. I mean, one will find ways to still have exhibitions, still have, exchanges. Think and write. If at all you can't, make the work you need to make because you need a studio or you need, sort of fabricators or whatever. Think and write at this time. Don't change.
And Priyanka, just to bring it back to the question for everyone, how are you managing to keep yourself motivated and also your team motivated? Are there anything that you can share in terms of tools or other guides that you have been using?
Yeah, so, to make an honest confession, we have good and bad days. I'm a diehard optimist, and even me, I'm having, I'm going through many days when I feel quite low, and then many days when I feel very energetic or very positive and, sort of happy about something that we've achieved. My team, on the other hand, I think they're a fantastic bunch of, positive people. That few, couple of hours that we connect is the time that we all feel so great about ourselves and the work that we're doing, because I think we make a good team. We also have a very, very clear sort of task breakup sort of model. We both Pratik and I are very early risers. Even at this time, we wake up at 4:45 in the morning. We work out, we do our thing, we listen to music. We still stick to the same routine that we had pre this whole change. So sticking to routine. We have 2 young kids, 8 and 11. They are homeschooling this whole time. So we're managing through keeping to a certain sort of routine, which is changed, but still something that's constant. And then, being with the positive people. The team experiment is great to hang out with, make friends with them. What do you say, Nivi?
I agree. Experimenter was the first internship I ever did in the art world. And Priyanka was and is still my mentor, but was also my first teacher. So for sure, I agree. I hang out with them a lot. We're both based in Calcutta. So yeah.
And Nivedita, if you could share a little bit about how your team manages, because I know your team is not all in one place.
Yeah, we're not all in one place. We have some people in Bombay. We had someone in Pune. We use Zoom, we use Asana, we use Slack, we use all the tools available to meet deadlines. I think the question was great because it's true. Everybody, including myself, we all have these extra responsibilities that we need to take care of, whether it's something on lunchtime, something in the evening, and we definitely work around those. We play some online games together after work, just to sort of keep the bonding going apart from just talking about work all day. And I'm definitely a stickler for routine. So I have a routine stuck up on my cupboard every day just to ensure I'm dressed and ready for work at 10 and for our call. Seeing the routine definitely helps, because for me personally, I feel that if we don't do a routine, sometimes maybe you send an email or like expect a response later in the day if you're just working from home. And we try not to do that and stick to 10 to 7 work hours and not work on the weekends. Like we have emails on weekends, guys, don't work, save the energy for Monday. Don't work on a Sunday, just so that we're not, I feel like sometimes it's hard to know which day it is. So at least don't work on a Sunday, save that energy. You know, we all have like good days, bad days. And yeah, it's sometimes we share little Zumba videos on our office chat and get everybody to do a 2-minute break in the middle of the work day to keep everyone energized. So I don't know how many people actually do it, but we try.
Can I zoom in on one of these Zumba sessions?
Done. We'll send you a link.
Roshan, would you like to close up the session for us with the way that you're dealing with all of this? And I can make the last closing remarks after.
So I actually, I must say this, there are days that I overdo things, because you're in a room and you're just working and you start it. I mean, I get up really early as well. And I spend the first 2 hours, thankfully, by myself, just reading and spending time, just generally just catching up and not catching. There's a lovely phrase that Rashmi sent to me the other day called doom scrolling. Stop doom scrolling. Stop it now. Okay. Find 5 positive places. It could be a podcast. I mean, podcasts are lovely nowadays when you're working, you listen to them in the background. It's just great fun. The other thing is, again, just to find happy things to do. There is great things. Faye D'Souza does this lovely thing at night, which is, the news that matters at 9 on Instagram. Fabulous. Atul Khatri does the better news in the morning. Veer Das is doing it. There are people who are putting themselves in a slightly different manner. So I like doing that. We make sure that the team, like most of you said, I mean, the entire team gets together and does something fun every week, whether it's a quiz. If you guys ever want a quiz organized, I can send a couple of great quiz masters. They do some fun stuff online. We're trying to see how people can connect this kinetic energy on one side to the other side of the screen, so get people to do physical things as well. And being a creative output, I think the good part is that we're constantly experimenting and thinking of new things to do, which keeps us going, but do not overdo it. Thankfully, I have a wife who pulls me up by the ear at some point and says, enough. And otherwise, I have this habit of just going on and on, like I can just go out till midnight. She's like, okay, this is it. This was your office time. It's done. And I think that's important because we've also got kids at home. So we made fun routines with all of them. Most people talked about having a schedule. It is important. This is the time when you need it, because the day when you're going off kilter, it brings you back. So I think that's a really, really important thing. And just take time to breathe and pause and get some sun. We all need vitamin D, which we're not going to get too much of for a while, I guess. Again, as many of you said, it is a marathon and it will take a lot of time. But again, I just keep going back to the Hitchhiker's Guide. Don't panic. You'll find your way. It's going to be a fun journey if you try to find a way. That's it.
Thank you so much, Roshan. Thank you, Archana, Priyanka, Nivedita as well. We're really glad that you could all be a part of this panel with us and really be so open and transparent in sharing different things that you're going through. For our audiences, I'd quickly like to let you know that ACRI and British Council are coming up with the next Festival Connections 3 weeks from now. So stay on the pages and stay updated for that. TIFA has an event coming up on the 23rd, which looks at the basic income for social transformation, which is what if we got a certain amount of money every month from the government. We had this event 2 months back and it seemed like a very different notion. So I think these ideas of how we're looking at time and money and the importance that we give it. So that's a session scheduled for 2 weeks from now as well. I'd also like to thank the back-end team once more, from Artex, and Dipti, also Wayne and Rashmi, who've been very helpful. From the TIFA team, Shaunak and Pratik, also Jishnu, Deepak, Dami, and Kruti, who've all helped in making this happen. Thank you, everyone. Please tune, please follow our social media pages and tag us if you've taken any screenshot of this experience digitally that we're doing now. Thank you. Bye. Have a good evening.